Good morning, everybody. It is day 116. It is Spiritual Healthcare Wednesday. Welcome, all of you. I hope you guys had a fantastic week. It's been a crazy busy week for me. I hope you guys had a great time. It has been roasting hot here in Edmonton. We've been in a massive heat wave. Good morning, everybody. Day 116. It is Spiritual Healthcare Wednesday. And got a lot of great topics this morning to talk about, including the role of entropy and 10 questions to start determining what the haunting in your home is representing, as well as where your values sit. So lots to talk about. Good morning, Marge. Good morning to Ed. Good morning to Sally. Nice to see everybody. It is good to see you guys. And as I say, lots to talk about this morning. Of course, I hope you guys had a really good week. It has been just super hot here, like crazy hot here. And next week, I will be in Toronto. So I think we will be doing spiritual healthcare from Toronto next week. I think. Find out. So good morning, everyone. Morning, Des. Nice to see you. Good morning, guys. As I say, it has been a crazy week for me. Tonight, I'm going to be featured on Beyond Reality Radio, and that's at 11 p.m. Eastern this evening. So that will be live on YouTube. I've posted the link on the Entity Seeker Facebook page. So if you guys want to tune in live, then you can. So I'll be doing that this evening, so that should be really fun. We're going to be talking about teaching the living and spiritual health care and all sorts of stuff, and who knows where the interview will go. I've never been on Beyond Reality Radio before, so this is going to be a new one for me, so it'll be really good. So good morning to everybody who is watching. As I say, day 116, and it is Spiritual Healthcare Wednesday. Good morning, Janae. Nice to see you. It's good morning to everyone. It has been a crazy week, as I say. Lots to do with the upcoming season of Haunted Hospitals, which I'll be filming next week, and that should be really fun. And yeah, as I say, hopefully we'll be doing spiritual health care from Toronto. We'll see what happens. That'll be really fun. So, but yeah, so lots of things going on, and of course, lots going on in the news and whatnot, and yeah, it's been a pretty nutty week. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about the idea of a concept called entropy, as well as understanding when we have a haunting or we have something going on in our experience. Sometimes it can be really hard to get to the core of what, or the root vibration, or the root energy that we've got going on within us, or that root belief that is causing the problem, that is causing what's going on around us. And because sometimes we look at stuff that's going on and we say we can't possibly have attracted this or manifested this, or if something's going on haunting wise that we can't quite understand, then sometimes it can be really hard to narrow down and see ourselves objectively to be able to identify what that is. So today I want to break some questions down for you guys so that you can spot it and answer them yourselves, and maybe get a greater understanding of what we've actually got going on belief-wise, because it's really funny. So much of the time when you ask somebody about what they believe or what they have wanted to manifest in their experience, oftentimes they will give you a list of things, but the list of things is pure fantasy. It's pure, there's no evidence. And as researchers, of course, we're very evidence-based. We're looking for what is the evidence that these things are true for you or true in your experience. And oftentimes you'll ask people, what is it that you're trying to get out of your life or you're manifesting in your life? And they will give you a list of things that are just 100% just complete fantasy in their head, and there's no evidence to support it. So I wanted to introduce to you guys the concept of entropy, because it's basically that if you don't organize things, right? If you don't organize things, that nature will indeed disorder it. It just will. It will just break it down. Like if you want to take, say for example, a car, right? If you sit a car out in a parking lot for 6-7 months, a year, anything like that, what's going to happen to that car? That car is going to suddenly start to actually break down. It just does. If you don't keep mechanical things running, if you don't take that car on the highway for a little while, every few weeks or whatnot, that car is going to start to break down. start to see that with houses as well. Sometimes if you guys ever watch the show Hoarders, I don't know if you guys ever seen the show Hoarders on A&E. It's so interesting because you will get a ton of things in that person's space that have been sitting there for 10, 15 years, and then they go to dig out that space and the stuff has disintegrated. Where normally, like if you were to keep some of that stuff up, right, then you'd have a full item, because you and I, we all, of course, we have items that have been in our possession for decades and sometimes even centuries that don't have that level of breakdown. But when something is not focused on, when it's not looked after, then entropies takes over. Everything just starts to break apart. Nature will disorder it. Schrodinger wrote a book about this called What is Life? And his idea was that death is order to disorder, right? It's the breakdown of the body, where life is chaos to order. It's bringing order to something, right? It's bringing order to something. And so the idea is, if we don't really fill our day with those things which is high priority to us, which is focusing our attention in a way that is viable and exciting to us, or at least we put intention into something, everything will basically fall victim to the course of entropy. The organisms that can use that energy will ultimately take it, which is what we see in death, right? When we see a body pass away or decay or something like that, a whole bunch of organisms dig into that because those things are not being utilized anymore. That energy is not being utilized anymore, but it can go somewhere. So nature will automatically take over for that. And so I think it's really important that as we kind of start to think about, hauntings and stuff like that, is to understand that when, just based on law of conservation, where our attention, where our energy is put, does actually start to create our world, and will determine whether we are disorganizing or organizing the particles and the brain waves and all of that stuff that's just going on and moving into our experience. So I wanted to introduce you guys to 10 questions to start to take a look at what it is you've got going on in your experience that represents what you actually value. Because so many times we will sit down with people who are, dealing with hauntings, or, dealing with something in their life that's not working, and they struggle because they're going, yeah, but I'm trying to write a book, or I want this relationship, or I want this, or I want that, and I've healed from this, and so on and so forth. And in reality, that's not true. It's just not true. They've got a story going on in their head about what they would like, or what they wish was a reality, but in hindsight, there's just no evidence to base that from. So the first question that I wanted to introduce you guys to is, how do you fill your space? How do you fill your space? Because the things that we keep the closest to us ultimately becomes what defines things that are the most important to us. So if we've got a space that is full of stuff that we just simply either, don't need, don't care about, whatever we have happening in our experience, ultimately that stuff, the stuff that's closest to you, is really what you are valuing, and it might not represent what you think you value. And this is the point that I'm getting at, is that so many times people will say, oh yeah, no, I value my kids the most, I value my home, but sometimes those are the people that, are the first to give the kids to the nanny or the sitter or whatever that is. Whatever you've got the closest to you is ultimately what you tend to value. So a lot of people, it's of course, their phone and communication with people. Sometimes it's, it's research, it's stuff like that. But what we value is really represented in what it is we keep around us. We also have to take a hard look at, how do we spend our time? Can you find time? And if there's no demonstration, ultimately, of what it is that you want within the use of your time, ultimately it's a fantasy. So we have to take a hardcore look, and start writing down, what is it that we spend our time on. When I get into this with clients, it's always very interesting, because they'll tell you what they wish they could spend their time on very quickly. And ultimately, when it comes back to it, what their time is actually spent on is oftentimes stuff that is just not good for them. It's not productive. It's not actually taking them in the direction that they want to go. I've had a number of clients that, I'll tell them, okay, you have to be able to take your attention off of the negativity, off of the haunting or the negative haunting that's going on, and get it into a direction that is furthering your experience, furthering your goal. And they'll turn around and say, oh yeah, no, I don't put my attention on that at all. And when it comes down to it, you've got them, spending an hour, 2 hours a day on the phone with their friends talking about it, or they're online researching it, or they're doing something that's putting their attention there. So how we spend our time is really important. And are we speaking just pure, straight up what we, fantasy, what we think we're doing, rather than what we are doing? The third one that I think is so important is what is energizing us. And this comes back to the idea of entropy that we just talked about. What is it that we are doing that is growing that energy? What is it that we are putting and investing our energy in? Remember, if we don't organize things, the nature automatically starts to disorder it. It just does. We start to run into hangups. We start to run into, just crazy situations that we don't want. And again, we are looking to at least order our thoughts and emotions enough and intend them enough that we start to create evidence of this in our experience. Another quick one, the fourth one, which is what do you spend your money on that's the most valuable? And the fifth one, which I think is one of the most interesting, is where are you the most reliable? So this one has always gotten me, because ultimately we invest in things, and we invest in time, in events and people and things like that. And when we are invested, we become way more reliable. If we don't care, you're not invested. And this is a good rule for relationships as well. If you've got somebody who's like always late and always showing up and like not caring and isn't showing up on time, or or just isn't a reliable person in certain areas or in their job, if you've hired somebody that way, where are you the most reliable? Ultimately, if they are not reliable in a certain area, oftentimes there's a really good reason. It's usually because the effort's just not being made. They don't care. So we have to take a look at that. Where are you the most reliable? And for me, it is, things like travel, for instance, projects that I'm invested in, whether it be, something like spiritual healthcare. I'm going to shoot something, reliable in my relationship. I follow through with promises, unless I literally can't. But so all of those things start to add up. But where we are the most reliable becomes very interesting. And the things that we kind of shuck off really does start to illustrate what is important to us. What are your values? The sixth one, which I find interesting, is what is it that you think about, what you visualize, and what do you internal dialogue about the most? And this is where the evidence factor comes in. And see, it's kind of like an actual investigation into the paranormal. It's just coming at it from a different way. Because once we understand what it is that we are putting our attention into and where our values are, we can start to back up a little bit off of a haunting that's maybe not so fun, and start to see where that breakdown is in our life. If we are, not being reliable to certain things, if we are not doing the things that energize us, if we are not careful about where and how we spend our time, and what we spend our time on, if we're not aware of those things, then we're not aware of the vibration that we've got going on that has attracted the paranormal event to begin with. And as we know, paranormal events are always a mirror. They're a mirror of something that we've got going on within us. So what we think about, what we visualize, what we have an internal dialogue about matters. And we've of course talked about this on spiritual healthcare so much, that it's really important to understand that we have to look at, if there is no evidence of that going on in our experience, don't write that down. If we've got, if you think that, okay, well, I'm an author and I'm writing a book, and you haven't actually started to write the book, that's not evidence of something that's going on in your experience right now. If you're not investing time into it, it's not a priority at this point. Don't write that down as something that's part of your reality, because that, again, we're getting into fantasy land again. So as we start to internal dialogue and understand what we're speaking to ourselves about, we also have to realize what we're speaking to other people about. So this is where I notice clients probably are the most unaware because they don't actually realize or understand what it is that they are projecting or speaking on. So they will, for example, have something going on in their life, or have an experience with their haunting or something like that, or something paranormal that they didn't want. And immediately they're the first to start talking about it. And it usually starts with the internal dialogue, but then they tend to go and find other people to discuss it with and build up that momentum, not realizing that they're setting themselves up for it to happen again. So understanding that the internal dialogue is then often reflected in our speech. And when we speak, we create. So we have to realize that our words are powerful. They are powerful, powerful tools. And we speak spells with our words in a way, and we have to really understand that. The 8th question is, what or who is it that inspires you? Because when we tend to model what it is we see and what it is that we see the most. And if we are looking in the direction of people who are doing what it is that we want to do, or at least being in a state of being that we want to be in, then we tend to move in the direction of those individuals and those events, or those people that are basically reflecting back to us what it is that we really, really want. So on the other side of that, even if we've got a bunch of people that are, we think are inspiring and things like that, is our attention really there? Who are we actually surrounding ourselves with? Who is our audience? And taking a good hard look at who those people are. Are they the ones that are encouraging? Are they the ones that are supporting our goals? What is it exactly that is surrounding us? Because ultimately it comes back to the first question, which is, how do you fill your space? It's not just stuff that we keep close to us. The people that we keep close to us as well are ultimately the people who we tend to become the most like. And they are a mirror. They are a reflection of what it is we've got going on within us. They're a reflection of that internal dialogue. They're a reflection of the things that maybe will energize us or not. And if they're not, then they're people that we're hanging on to in our experience for a reason. And we've got to start to understand why. Hauntings work the same way in this sense, where, if you are living with a negative entity, something that is, worst case scenario, something maybe that's malicious or angry or just, territorial or whatever's going on, then you've got to start to ask yourself, what is it about me that is attracting this energy and keeping it into my experience? And hauntings are funny because they are one of the only things that people will look at and say, it's being afflicted on me, rather than I have a role to play in the situation that I've got going. It's really interesting. And we have to understand that that's just not true. So we have to take a look at, who is it that inspires us? Who is it? And, are those people in our experience on a regular basis? My partner is so neat. He's got, in his office, he has got photographs of everybody that inspires him all over his wall. So every time he sits down at his computer, his entire wall is covered in the faces of all of the individuals, dead and alive, who have inspired him and keep him moving in that direction. So even though they are not in his space physically, they're in his space spiritually, and his internal dialogue becomes a reflection of the people that are posted around him. It's really, really, really cool. And I loved that idea. So feel free to steal that, because that's just, I think it's brilliant. For myself, he greatly inspires me on so many levels, but also, just the books that these people have written over the years. People like Jan Le Van Zandt, of course, is incredible. There's been so many. There's been so many over the years. I can't even begin to list them. Esther Hicks, people like that. If you've got all of these influences that are in and around your world, you really do start to mirror what is in your space. So I highly recommend the photograph on the wall idea, because it's really neat. And his office is the whole wall is just, it's covered. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. So you can change your space that way. The ninth one is understanding the 3 most persistent goals. And that sounds like a very generic question, but what I want you to do, and this is what I get my clients to do as well, what are the 3 most persistent goals you have that are coming true right now? What are the 3 most persistent that are coming true now? So here's where it gets tricky, because this is an evidence-based question. And it takes you out of the world of what you wish was happening and put you in the world of what you are actually creating, so you can understand where you are to get to where you want to be. So for me, for instance, I love to be able to teach. I love to be able to, go all over Canada and teach people, and, do live shows, do lectures, do all of these different types of things, which has greatly changed since the pandemic. But that was something that I can look at my experience and see evidence of those things coming true. So for example, next week, going to film Haunted Hospitals, the 3rd season, hopefully Paranormal 911 as well, eventually coming up. I'm going on the radio shows tonight. I have a history of that. To be able to look at your 3 most persistent goals that are coming true. Improving my relationship, for instance, that's always on the list. And I can see steady improvement in that every single day. So we have to look at the idea of not only what it is that we are doing, what we are speaking, but if what we are speaking is matching up with what is coming into reality. It's a really, really big deal. So the 10th one that I think is so important for everyone is, what do you love to study? What do you love to study? What is your passion? What gets you going? Marge is saying she has pictures of Keanu Reeves on her refrigerator. The standard for her now: peaceful, creative, and soulful. Yeah, absolutely. And I think he is a great model to be idolizing and involved in, because he does have this great way about him, and the personal work that he's done, which has been so phenomenal and so inspiring. So I agree. I think he is a great person to have on your wall. Absolutely. And Shadow is saying music and paranormal stuff is her course of study. Yeah, and for me, it's been the same thing. It's been the performing arts and music and the paranormal and spirituality, as well as fire arts and stuff like that. I love it, and I love psychology. Psychology has always been a massive passion for me as well throughout history. Looking at it in different world events, all of that kind of thing. I've always found that just incredibly interesting, and why people do what they do, and why they create what they create has always been a really strong fascination to me. And when I realized that we play such a massive role in putting out a signal to the universe that is being responded to, and once people know that, and then she'll still choose to create a negative experience. It's very interesting. I find that fascinating. Shadow saying my fire stuff is really cool. Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Shadow is going to be at the Stanley Hotel in the next little while here, and I can't wait to see what you bring back in terms of pictures, and if you catch anything, I think it's going to be really awesome. I think Stanley Hotel is incredible. I've never been, so we're all going to live vicariously through Shadow now for the next for the next week, I think. It's going to be absolutely cool. So, but yeah, so we have to take a look at this, because as I say, the purpose of these questions is that you'll have about 3 to 5 answers pop up that will basically reoccur. They will be 3 to 5 answers that will reoccur, and they will help you to get clear about what your values actually are, what you are creating in your experience in reality, not the fantasy side of it, but the reality side of it, so that you can understand what it is you are actually projecting into your environment. Because it's so easy to get hung up on a label that might be just completely, in your head, not true, not happening, or it might be something where you can actually start to take information from and begin to take steps in order to create what it is that you want. So it has this has a number of really, really great uses and purposes. As I take my clients through this often, because people really don't realize how much of what they think they are projecting and putting out there versus what is actually being reflected in their environment. It's that drastically different often. Drastically different. I had a friend who oftentimes will label over and over and over again these different things that she's looking to be or want to be or whatever, and taking absolutely zero action to create that in her experience. So it's, at the end of the day, we have to be able to take a hard look at these questions and go, okay, what is it that we really are valuing in our experience? Does it need to change? And how is it being reflected back to us in what we have? It's so easy to be, to sit in complaint and, upset and things like that, and go, I don't know how this happened. But ultimately, we have to remember the things that are the closest to us really do represent our state of being on a pretty vast level. And determining our values, determining what it is that we do value, really does allow us to look at the things that are going on in our experience and understand where this stuff starts to fall short. And it plays into, even if you're trying to get a new job or something like that. It doesn't have to just be about the paranormal. It can be about a lot of different things. And when we start to understand what it is we value, we also start to understand how people and energy sees us. We start to understand how the universe sees us. And when we can see how the universe is seeing us, we really can start to understand why we're bringing in the things that we're bringing in. But we've got to have the insight first. So I found a really great segment in Faith in the Valley for today that I thought was so good, that I wanted to share with you guys, because it's really, really cool. So check this out. I loved this. People change their minds. They change their minds about staying, leaving, what they want to do, how they want to do it, and whether or not they want to do it with you. You may not like it, but people have a right to change their minds, and so do you. Change your mind right now from it has to work to it doesn't have to work. From there's nobody else for me to there's got to be someone else for me. From what am I going to do without you? Or I'm sure it's going to be just fine. From you said you'd never leave me to, oh, I see, you've changed your mind. People have a right to change their minds. You might not like it. It might be painful as all heck. It might be as inconvenient as all get out, but you have the same right. And when someone you love changes their mind, remember that you can use yours too. So I think it's just, it's a powerful reminder, I think, in this case, because here we've got, once we sit down and we answer some of these questions, at that point, you get to change your mind as to what it is that you want to do and move forward with. What is it that you want to do? And it might be taking a look at those people that are closest to you and going, wait a minute, you don't have to be that close to me. It doesn't mean you've got to get rid of it, or that person, or cut them out, or, throw away that thing. But it does mean you have to redefine what it is that is within your space. Change what it is that inspires you. If you've got stuff that's going on in and around you that's not serving what it is that you ultimately want and value, change it up. Change it up. Change your mind. You can do that. You're allowed to do that. So I think it is just, it's a powerful realization for so many people, because we forget that we have that choice. We just completely forget about it. I don't know why we do, but we think we are subject to other people changing their mind first, and we're really not. We get to choose. We get to pick. But just remember that if you don't organize things, nature will disorder it. It just does. That life ultimately is that chaos turning into order. And when we start to really get that, and we can start to fill our day with that high priority action and intention, then we end up creating on a level that is far more realistic and evidence-based than turning around and just keeping those elements of our story, our labels, our false labels, just in the background. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we know where we are, so that we can get to where we want to be. Because what we do, what we talk to ourselves, what we tell ourselves, is going to create everything. It's really important. So, everybody, before we go, we got to do some peace affirmations. We got to do it. Everybody take a breath. I'm a channel of peace and well-being, and my need for peace is abundantly met. I unconditionally accept, love, and appreciate myself and who I am. I recognize and am grateful for the abundance that is constantly flowing into my life, which I can choose to allow or not. I feel with every breath a sense of peace and love. I help others by maintaining and tending to my connection with Source as much as possible. This well-being is accessible to me, even in a sea of uncertainty. And at this moment, all is well. I am able to liberate myself from my past and live with peace and serenity. I can see and appreciate all the beauty and abundance of the life around me. I'm able to embrace love while letting go of fear. And I find peace with the soothing silence of my inner being. And everybody take a breath. So tonight, you guys, on Beyond Reality Radio, I will be on there chatting about spiritual healthcare and about teaching living and all of these things. I don't know where the conversation's going to go. We're going to find out. It should be really fun. I posted the link on the Entity Seeker Facebook page, so you guys can tune in live on YouTube. So this is going to be, I think it's going to be really fun. It's like 75 minutes, so it's going to be like a long one, and it'll be really great. So I'm excited. I hope you guys can tune in tonight. It's 11 p.m. Eastern time, and it will be live. And I'm sure they keep their programs up as well. So if you miss it tonight, then you can rewatch it, and I'll repost it and whatnot. So it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really cool. And next week, as I say, I will be in Toronto filming Haunted Hospitals. So we should be able to hopefully be doing spiritual healthcare from Toronto. That could be really fun. So I will keep you guys posted, and it should be a really, really, really fun class to next week. If nothing else, I will have stories next week. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, you guys might be joining me in Toronto, so we'll find out what happens. Anyway, I will see you guys next Wednesday for our Spiritual Healthcare Wednesdays. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everybody.